A very good evening and welcome this edition of the Fourth Estate. Charles Mwangu Shampagi. And tonight we'll be discussing the opposition and particularly retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye, former presidential candidate, announced earlier in the week, actually last week, that they will be launching another effort to challenge government, which is the campaign called Tubalemese, arising out of last year's Red Ribbon campaign and other initiatives that have emerged before. We'll be taking an audit of can it work this time, or is it another, as what some people have called it, sloganeering. We'll also, of course, discuss a little bit of what has upset, especially the African continent and the world. President Donald Trump comes out with those famous one-liners. Why should we be accepting immigrants from these shithole countries? That's the word he used. I have seen a very interesting video this afternoon, this evening actually, from Trevor Noah with those one-liners from President Donald Trump praising himself and former Ugandan President Idi Amin Dada. It's really hilarious to look at it, but we're asking some questions around that as well. The panel tonight, let me start with Robbie Kakonge. Robbie making a return after appearing last week. Very nice to have you here.
Likewise.
Robbie is a communication expert, communication media expert. I hope that's the correct introduction I should have for you. Very nice to have you. Also making a return, Onapite Komoloit has been missing after the Christmas and New Year holidays. Ona, very nice to have you.
Good evening, Charles. Nice to be back.
You had an extended holiday.
Yeah. I took a sabbatical, as they say.
To think and reflect for the country, I hope.
I will try to explain as we go along.
Okay. Leah Erienyu. Leah is also making a return after appearing last week. Leah is a social commentator and activist. Leah, very nice to have you.
Thank you for having me, Charles. And I'm very intimidated to be seated next to the good doctor.
Intimidated?
Yes.
That's a strong word. And of course, retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye himself making appearance on the Fourth Estate. Doctor, very nice to have you on the Fourth Estate tonight.
Thank you very much, and very good evening to all the viewers and listeners out there.
Doctor, I want to start straight with you, and that's the question. You held a press conference earlier in the week and announced the Tubalemese campaign. We're discussing that same issue on another show on the Friday panel on KFM outset, and we're saying Tubalemese and Kulemesa is a word President Museveni has loved for long. He always speaks about it. What's different about Tubalemese, and what are you going to do? Where can it take you?
Well, first of all, this is not a campaign for me. It's a campaign for Ugandans. And those who think it's worthwhile will definitely engage with it, and those who don't think it's worthwhile will not, should not pay any attention. And the background to it is indeed in what happened at the close of last year, when we saw, I think every person, even the most casual observer in this country, must have witnessed the country thinking in one way regarding its governance and the constitution, and some few people thinking and deciding in a particular way. And not just deciding in a particular way, but doing so with violence. Because we witnessed our parliament, surrounded by armaments, invaded by people still unknown. The Speaker of Parliament herself wrote a letter inquiring into who had attacked Parliament. The people that attacked Parliament, coming from the President's office, are still unknown who they are, who sent them, what their mission was. But clearly, very violent, beat up members of Parliament, some of whom were, seriously injured and treated outside. And eventually, the decision that was made. But even before that decision, I think the country witnessed, how it was procured, the whole process of procuring it. Members of parliament who were officially commissioned to go and consult were themselves violently attacked, beaten, and dispersed in broad daylight, while others were being protected and, So the background to what we communicated this ending week was that we are in a country which is controlled by a few people using coercive forces. We are in a hostage state. And this hostage state is not a new state where few people make decisions on behalf of many, and decisions that have far-reaching implications. Decisions, of course, the most important decision that is being made in our country is through elections. That's where people participate to make important decisions on who leads them and how they are led. We know that we have never changed a leader through an election. Every leader that has led this country comes through force. So it is force that mediates change, political change, not people. And that is the situation that we have to contend with as a country, that we are a hostage country. We have people that, few people that make decisions, that control institutions, that all institutions are controlled by these people. They are not institutions of the people, they are institutions of the regime. That we have resources that are controlled, monopolized, and used for the benefit of the few. And so, and some people think that what I am saying is not the case. There are some people who think we are a democratic country, everybody has freedom, everybody participates in making a decision. So that is for every Ugandan to make a judgment on. The place where you come from to make these statements is very well known. So the question is, if we are a country that is controlled by gunmen, that no leader has ever taken leadership except using guns, that constitutions come with leaders and go with them. The 1995 constitution, the preamble was that this particular constitution was to immunize the country against that this constitution was intended to establish political and constitutional stability. And the provisions through which that was to be achieved were the two provisions that have already been knocked down when they inconvenienced one individual that holds the country to ransom. So the question is, if we are held hostage by those with guns, how do we free ourselves so that we have equal influence in the country and that the country serves us equally? And that is the strategy, therefore, of procuring change.
Yes.
And that strategy...
Can I just cut in there? I'll let you finish your train of thought there. The question is this actually guided by strategy? What's different about Tubalemese from the others?
Yeah, so that's where I had just reached, that the question is, we have to change power from being controlled by a few to being controlled by the majority of the people in this country. And the question is, what strategy, therefore, do you use to regain power from the gunmen? And that's where, there has been a misunderstanding. And there are three broad strategies that I can talk to. Mm-hmm. The first one, which is what has failed, is using elections. That people can regularly go, cast votes, and choose their leaders and choose how they will be led. Mm. The reason that cannot function is because, as I have told you first, the institutions that mediate political processes are controlled by those with guns. Mm-hmm. And so you will not have a free process. So people cannot express themselves freely.
Through an election.
The institutions that mediate, that manage electoral processes cannot manage in a free, in an open and transparent and fair way. So elections have failed since independence to have free and fair elections. You cannot have free and fair elections unless actually you have freedom. That's the starting point. If there is no freedom for everybody, you can't have free elections. And some people still think that even what we have today, a military dictatorship, which is the essential element of it. Mr. Museveni was brought into office by the military. The declaration in 1986 was that we, the National Resistance Army, on this day take the power of state of government. It was the National Resistance Army, and vest it in the National Resistance Movement. And that taking of power by guns is what cannot be changed by just casting a vote. And Mr. Museveni has been candid about this, saying that a piece of paper cannot remove it.
Yes, I hear you on
So,
that, Doctor.
so that
Yes.
is one of the strategies. And if you listen to some of the people who have been talking on these things, some say we have failed to get change through elections because we are not doing the right things that would cause change through elections. We are not organizing grassroots structures. We are not providing alternative policy agenda that can attract people to support us. We are not, convincing people through, sufficiently influencing the formation of political will. Those are the very things that cannot happen when there is no freedom. So as long as there is no freedom, elections in and of themselves, if you ask me, elections in and of themselves will not cause change.
Yes.
And indeed, the person who knows that best is Mr. Museveni.
Yes,
because that's why he took guns.
Yes, I want to bring in the other panelists, but
Yes,
I hear you on that.
So let me just conclude on what happened this week. So what happened this week is, those of us who believe the military regime, the military dictatorship we have, cannot be changed just by elections in and of themselves. We believe that there must be struggle. And the struggle takes two main strands. You either have violent struggle, armed struggle, like Mr. Museveni did. You take up guns and fight with the other guns, or you use the people, the power in the numbers of people to overcome the power of those with guns. That non-violent popular struggle is what we have chosen as a strategy.
Okay, thank you.
And the Tubalemese, the way the majority of people Tubalemese stop the other people who have guns from continuing to do what they want, is through either boycotting what they do, or through expressing themselves in a manner that will weaken those who have guns and make them fail. And so there are mechanisms that have been used. We are not inventing the wheel. So Tubalemese is something that is not just done by those of us, but every Ugandan, wherever they are, who believe that the situation is...
I hear you perfectly, and people have been debating since you held the press conference and announced that. The question is this a strategy that can work? Why would it... I want to draw other panelists into the discussion. We'll come back to you. I want to start with you, Robbie. Do you think this is a strategy that can work?
Charles, one of the things that you've mentioned in terms of the media and covering the opposition and covering politics in this country is that the opposition was able to take the center stage in advocating for change. This was years ago. But then in that sequence, you get there, you take center stage, and then what happens? It just seems like every other time it's a slogan, every other time it's start, stop, and go. Start, stop, and go. So therefore, the question still remains, Dr. Besigye, in that in this process, with the Ugandans, with the Tubalemese, what is different? How are things going to be different in terms, because is it different because last time it was blue, now people are wearing red, and tomorrow they wear yellow so that they also Tubalemese? The whole Ugandans are very keen in talking politics, in looking at politics. But sometimes there's a bit of a challenge when there's this notion that the people with the guns, especially given that some of the people in the opposition were part of the people with the guns. So it's got to be crystal clear, in essence, is in what Charles was saying. And I think after all this time, the question still remains, what are the objectives? What has been accomplished? And even within the opposition itself, are some of those people with you in this struggle? Are they advocating for these things? Or is there, even that walk is not complete?
Thank you. Let's all make the contribution, and then we can have him respond at once. Ona, people have been picking, I think one of the cartoonists in one of the newspapers drew Dr. Besigye on a typewriter with a long roll of paper, throwing off one slogan after another, and saying, what will the next one be? And the people have been asking the timing of the particular slogan, the naming of that slogan, and actual mobilization work that can deliver. When you come to Tubalemese.
Well, Charles, at least you must give Dr. Besigye credit for not being a quitter, even when most people think it's impossible. And increasingly, though, is more a subject of pity than perhaps hate by those who don't agree with his strategy. He has articulated a strategy of people power. But I think the most important thing that any strategy must first start with situation analysis. And he kind of does that, but I think the real situation analysis that is missing here is trying to understand the people in Uganda that he hopes will rise and challenge the armed group. I don't see in the history of Uganda since before independence that tendency. There have been military coups, there have been guerrilla wars, which are really about armed and unarmed groups facing each other, and sometimes in one group in hiding in case of a guerrilla. But the culture of open defiance without arms, I've not seen it in Uganda. It's largely a submissive society. You can't even compare it with Kenya, where we see time and again people going on the street and challenging governments and sort of causing change. So the crisis is that we're almost witnessing what they say, people get the government they deserve. Time and again, Dr. Besigye and his group tell us, Yoweri Museveni has finally crossed the red line. They lifted term limit. This age limit was supposed to be it. Tojikwatako. Everyone thought it can't happen. Not only does it happen, Parliament even extends the term from easily from 5 to 7 years. So clearly the population is not in sync with the opposition. They kind of are ready to leave. And maybe you must give credit to Yoweri Museveni that he has created a certain level of comfort that allows people to say, well, we
comfort or despondency?
Well, despondency and comfort, because in many societies, they have reached a critical point. Maybe the Ugandans have not yet reached a critical point, because look at a situation like Zimbabwe, the economy was really seen to be in
shambles.
In shambles. Here the economy, you can argue, is not the best, but people get by. So there is a crisis for the opposition whereby on one hand, they are dealing with a tricky customer in the person of Yoweri Museveni, whom Dr. Besigye knows is not, is not someone who really doesn't know what he's doing in many respects. And then you are dealing with the population, which sort of encourages them, but when it comes to the critical point, Remember during the last election, there was a belief that this time, when the election is stolen, people are going to rise. We waited and did not happen. So, are the people whom you expect to rise really uncomfortable enough to rise? I don't think they are.
Let's hear from Leah. You have had close to, I don't know how the assessment has been done, but close to successful people uprisings in the way Dr. Kizza Besigye talks about it. The first you had was in 2007, over the giveaway of Mabira Forest. Many analysts think that was successful people rising to challenge government where they felt passionate. There was no WhatsApp at that time. People mobilized each other through SMS, and people put in their own money to mobilize for, but that was a different kind of agitation. The other one you come close is 2009, when the Kabaka was stopped from going to Kayunga. But that ran for less than 10 days, and it petered out. Then you had a little bit more sustained Walk to Work 2011. 2011 Walk to Work is riding off the Arab Spring. So there's a lot of anticipation that because you've had the Arab Spring in northern Uganda, in North Africa, in Tunisia, in Egypt, you had it a bit in Yemen, which has not yet settled. That was an offshoot that created Syria, what we have in Syria today. You had it in Libya. But you have not had sustained Ugandans going on the street to demand either to boycott or to be on the street. Where does a campaign like Tubalemese fit in?
Okay, I'll preface that answer by saying that, I too appreciate the efforts of the opposition in trying to get rid of this government under which many of us were born. And Onapito mentioned, and Dr. Besigye also mentioned, that the strategy is about people power. And yet I feel that that's actually the key ingredient that's missing from this Tubalemese campaign. Number one, because I feel that the interests of the people, which is actually present in all the other uprisings across the world, in the Arab world, and also here, however short-lived they were, the people's interests were captured in those mini revolutions. The issue had become personal. And so that is why people were willing to risk their lives and go out and fight for what they believed in. But when you look very critically at this campaign, one of the things that I really appreciate was the issue that the MPs that voted yes have to be shunned. But then the issue that I felt was very tone deaf and very elitist is the issue of economic boycott. In a country such as Uganda, where most people, the majority of people are languishing in poverty, you cannot make a choice to not shop at a certain shop because that's the only shop that's there. And also because of the lack of information, we do not have access to information. We don't know who owns what. And also, to even frustrate us further, actually, the state machinery has their fingers in almost everything. So the difference between the other uprisings and the ones that we've had is that the other ones were more personal and they were able to be sustained because then they eventually, almost all of them got the military on their side. And that's the only, that has not happened in the case of Uganda. All the uprisings, however peaceful they started out, were met with the utmost repression. And so that is why they were never sustained. I think the uprising, actually that's too big a word.
Civil disobedience.
Civil disobedience that I felt resonated with people the most was the one on Walk to Work, because that was talking about the economic malaise that everybody was facing. But there's a certain fatigue that has settled in. When Tubalemese, when Dr. Besigye came to announce Tubalemese, I felt that it was received with a lot of disillusionment. There was, it was more of the same. It was the same strategy with the same faces. No offense to you, Dr. Besigye. But we've seen your face every time. And for me, it was very particular to how that press conference was even held. Dr. Besigye is the de facto leader of the opposition, even if he does not hold an official office. And the leader of FDC was actually to the extreme of the table. I thought that perhaps he should be the one announcing the Tubalemese campaign, since at least he actually officially holds office. And this is not in any way to minimize the contribution that Dr. Besigye has made to the growth of the opposition or even to the growth of the FDC. But his face and his reputation casts a long shadow, such that he overshadows everything. So, but we've also seen that when the opposition comes together, you know, and they think critically, and perhaps sometimes without the good doctor's input, you know, people can get galvanized. Look at Toji Kwatako. That actually originated from FDC. At least that's what I think.
No,
Rather, DP. Excuse me. That's what I meant to say, from DP. And it galvanized the people, and it had new faces. And I think people were excited about that. So because Dr. Besigye, however great his ideas are, because we keep seeing his face, yes, then sometimes there is a feeling that, oh, this is more or less the same thing. So I felt that that the campaign was in some regard dead on arrival.
Okay. Can we take a quick commercial break, and then Dr. Besigye will respond, because the many issues that have been raised by the panelists, which you need to respond to and give us direction. Is this something new? What is new about it? And can you actually finally deliver on it? Or it's another slogan? After a very quick commercial break. Back this edition of the Fourth Estate, and we're discussing, is it another slogan, Tubalemese? And Dr. Kizza Besigye announced it, is here to answer those questions. Dr. Besigye, you listened to the other panelists, and the long and short of it is, basically to many people, you're not putting on the table anything new.
Yes,
possibly there is no strategy behind it.
I think
yes.
What these panelists said crystallizes the problem that we actually have, which is a problem of leadership. Because, you know, and this is a fundamental problem with the Ugandan elite. They indeed, like Onapito said, would like to be commentators, not step forward, offer direction, and lead people into action. You had all of them were, you know, raising questions, raising doubts, but nobody saying, no, I think in what you have said, this is not the right strategy. Let's do this. If we did this, it would serve better than what you are saying. It does not help to say what you are doing is the same that you have been doing, when you are not producing any suggestion that is different, you know? And as I have told you, in terms of strategy, I consider that there are three main strategies that one can consider in removing an entrenched military dictator. And the three I have told you, actually there are two. One is the election, which I said, to my mind, does not function. No election has removed an entrenched military dictator anywhere. Just election organized by the dictator. The other one is struggle. And in struggle, there are two strands. Either violent struggle, like Museveni conducted, or non-violent struggle. You can tell us a fourth one, and we shall entertain it and interrogate it, and it may excite Ugandans. What we are telling Ugandans day in, day out, and we shall tell it to them for the next 50 years if nothing has happened, is that our choice of strategy is non-violent struggle. Non-violent struggle entails three things. One, people must have the necessary understanding, the awakening, the political awakening to the situation in which they live, and how they can get out of it. So the first step in any conduct of nonviolent struggle is awakening, conscientizing the population. And that is through programs like this, talking to people,
but
holding meetings at different levels.
Hold it a moment.
Yes.
We're not discussing a new innovation here. We're discussing a struggle you've been involved in for the last so many years.
Yes, the question...
We are discussing the different initiatives or the different strategies you've put forth before. What kind of stock taking have you done to say, walk to work started here,
well, I will come to that. That is one of the things that was raised. If you leave me alone, I will actually get to them.
No, I cannot leave you alone. I will not.
Because you are repeating what has been raised.
Yes.
What is the progress along this struggle? Have we made any headway? That has already been raised. So if you ask it again, it doesn't add. So the first thing I was saying is, these are the strategies of how you can start from A to Z. First of all, the end result which we want, as I have said, is where power shifts, not from one individual to another, but from control by a few people to popular control. And that is precisely why actually we opt not to use armed struggle. Because armed struggle can defeat the other armed men, like we did when we went to Ruwero. We defeated the forces of Tito Okello and Milton Obote, who were there then. But what happened was that the new forces cannot be tamed by the population. They become the new problem. So you have one force. In fact, what Museveni said at the doorsteps of parliament, that this is not a change of guard. That is exactly what it was. A set of guards going out and another guard that the population cannot control coming in. So but otherwise, that strategy can defeat the armed men, because you have the population behind you. You can, and like he did with few guns, you can build and defeat this one. But you won't get to the strategic goal which we want, which is changing the locus of power.
Dr. Besigye, the risk of interrupting you, you're talking about what you want.
Yes.
But in the process of what you want,
yes,
how are you planning for what you want? And what we're saying is that when you've got a population that's saying, Sebe government to Yambi.
So,
and on the other hand, you're saying Tubalemese. These same people, are you going to these same people
yes,
who are asking the government, but to Yambi?
Yes, so I have told you that the first thing is to identify the goal. The strategic goal is shifting power. The second thing is the strategy. The strategy we have chosen is non-violent struggle. What do we do under non-violent struggle is what I was telling you, 3 things. The first one is awakening. So that first of all, the mindset of the people who say government to Yambe changes. And he knows he's the one who has to do the hard work. When we started this struggle, people were telling us, Banange mutuwanirire, fight for us. We are praying for you. Carry on. Don't lose hope. You know, they were not seeing themselves as part of the struggle. They were just, prompting you to go on and fight for them. That has changed tremendously. And if one was following what happened in 2016, I'm sure you saw what has never happened in this country. That I moved throughout the whole country, getting money from Ugandans, supporting change to happen.
But the same Ugandans, yes, you say, thereafter your victory was stolen. And the same Ugandans stood by to this day.
Yeah, so go step by step. That is a transformation. You're asking, have we made any headway? That is practical
so
headway.
For me, I go back to my point. They are happy to give you the money to fight, but they are not willing to fight with you.
I'm coming. I told you there are 3 steps. The first one is conscientization. And I believe we have gone a long way. People now know that it's not just Besigye and Lukwago and a few people. They know that everybody has a role. And those who have not known, it continues to be our responsibility, or the responsibility of those who know, wherever they are, to make sure that every Ugandan knows that they have to have a stake in the changes, that it's not a personal thing. Now, the second step, having people knowing what needs to be done, is to give them organizational competencies. Because for people's power to be effective, they have to have the competence to act together, which is what you're asking, for them to come together and agitate together. It's not one group coming up and others remaining sleeping, and they have to be that organizational competence. That too is a process that takes a bit of time. And I am really surprised, especially at you, Ndugu Napito, because I think you have some, background of history, to say that in Uganda we have never had this. How did we get independence? We did not actually go to fight like Kenya did. It was boycotts, it was actually people organizing non-violent struggle. It was non-violent struggle that forced the British out of this country by the Kagwas and so on, which is very well documented. So it is possible. It has happened even in our own country for non-violent struggle to cause change. Now, I was talking about the second stage, organizational competencies. That takes time too. If at the last election, the way people were conscious, the way people responded, if they had been equally organized and led. Now, organization is about leadership. This is why I say that our crisis is a crisis of leadership and nothing else. And organization is about creating a network of leaders. And those are the people that are a problem. Whoever comes up, next day you hear they have been called to Kayihura's office, and the next day they are talking to some Rudicha.
I think I hear you.
That is where the problem. That is where the problem lies.
You've been on this journey since effectively 2001.
Even before.
Yes,
the journey that even took me to the bush.
It took you to the bush. Now, but we assess Dr. Kizza Besigye as an opposition leader from 2001 to date. And you're talking about building organizational competence. And the question that is running around the table, and you'll hear on the street, is people asking, how long must they wait for that organizational competence to be built? And let me put another question. You said people need conscientization. Well and good. People told you, struggle for us. Now, what you'll find on the street are people saying, do we really want this? Will this really work for us? Can they leave us have some peace? Because if
you see, let me tell you.
Yeah.
There, as I've told you, there are two types of people. There are the people at the bottom who have nothing to lose, who are determined to do anything, and their frustration is us, the leaders. Because people, at the end of the day, it will take them a longer time. They will do it eventually. They will do it. They will organize themselves, even without our input. If we continue being the nuisance we are as elites, people have in other countries indeed organized themselves. Peasant revolutions have happened. Peasants can stand up and throw every one of us to the sea. So the question is how long it or how effective it is to do what needs to be done. And that's where the challenge comes to the commentators. You Besigye, you have failed. Well, okay, we have failed. But has Besigye stopped any person coming out and doing what needs to be done? Because you hear even some people, very, very disturbing, saying Besigye and Museveni are the same. Besigye has refused to leave opposition leadership. Museveni has refused to leave government leadership. The reason Museveni holds on to government leadership is because of known factors. Guns, state money, which he uses, as I have told you, to bribe everybody, control of media so that people don't get the information you need. What does Besigye use to maintain control in the opposition?
But
absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Is there no merit to that critique that
so tell me,
since you're there all the time, and even if you're not actually holding the office officially, because of your reputation, because of the respect and the deference that they have for you.
So in order for another leader to come up, you are suggesting Besigye should just go and hide?
No.
Stop struggling?
Absolutely
So that
not.
another leader comes up. Because tell me otherwise, what it is that I have that stops any person coming up to... How did I come up? Weren't they opposition leaders when I came up?
I think
Were they opposition leaders? Were they not? I came up actually from government.
I think
From
what I'm
part of
trying
the
to
struggle.
say
Yes.
specifically, let me just use an example of Obama, who's a very charismatic man, and if he never went away, then he would never go away, because then he's being held up as that kind of savior. And I feel that a lot of people look at you that way, such that even if there is another leader that has come up that is charismatic, but as long as you're sharing a table with them, the attention is always going to be on you. So for me, the solution would be, as a young person that looks up to you, actually, the solution would be for you to focus on the behind the scenes organizing and just come out once in a while and give inspirational speeches. Because first of all, even your very presence sometimes proves to be a distraction, because then the police are going to come out. And then sometimes when the organizing is much smaller, then everything is smooth sailing. But this is with great appreciation for all the work that you've done. But I feel that you cast a long shadow. It will be the equivalent of Nelson Mandela saying, I have retired from active office, but then every so often coming to share the lectern with Thabo Mbeki. I think that's
the thing also. With younger people, sometimes there's this tendency to try and push, older leaders off the stage. Dr. Besigye is on the stage. Now, whether he's behind or in front or on the stage, he's part and parcel of this thing. You talked about reputation, Now, my question is, at the end of the day, you and Museveni may be the same. And in this regard, you're both gurus. Now, is he going to be seen as the guru of peace? And are you willing to be seen as the guru of resistance? But to what extent, and what will this resistance yield? Because when you went to the bush, it was what, 5 years? You mentioned 201, here we are, 2018. So with this...
Let me ask, in 2001, I fled Uganda. I stayed away for 4 years. I came back in 2005, end of 2005. How was I casting a shadow?
Well, you're here now.
Tell me. Here, you are saying I'm always here. I go away actually for some time. I go away. And you hear, what do you hear? Besigye, Yalagawa. Why is he quiet?
I think
Have you heard of that?
I think with
I just wanted us to return.
Has he also been bought?
I wanted us to return to Dr. Besigye's concern.
Before you return to Dr. Besigye's concern, I wanted Dr. Besigye to respond to what Robbie said. Are you comfortable having Museveni characterized as the guru of peace and you as the guru of resistance?
Well, I don't know who would ever characterize Museveni as a guru of peace. How would that arise?
One of the biggest things is like peace and stability, not just in Uganda, but within the region. That there is
stability and peace within the region.
His contribution towards peace and stability.
Is there peace and stability in the region?
Dr. Besigye, when you came with him and when you came here, were you not part of the group that brought peace and stability to Uganda?
Yes, but is there peace and stability in the region? Because the peace you are talking about was very transitory and limited.
But that's what the people remember.
That even when Uganda was talked of to have general peace, there was war for 20 years in northern Uganda. There was war in eastern Uganda. There was war in western Uganda. So I don't see how you would want to characterize in 2018 that am I comfortable Museveni being characterized as a guru of peace? I mean, I don't know whether anybody would ever be comfortable with such a thing, considering what is going around. Now, whether I would like to be characterized as a guru of resistance, I wouldn't like to be a guru of anything. And resistance is not something, just to be proud of. What we all would want to see happen is that regardless of who does what, there is a shift from control of us as citizens and our resources and abuse of it and so on, to a situation where there is democratic control, accountability.
Thank you.
Now, the question, what we are engaged with, and I'm rather, you know, uncomfortable that you throw many things, but you don't give me time to respond.
I have one particular problem, Dr. Besigye, that your answers are long, and someone sent a message and said, the first interaction between me and you took 20 minutes. So, and we only have about 1.5 hours to get this
well,
so
all of them asking
No, I want Dr. Besigye,
if they are answering what
we'll try as much as possible.
You are all asking.
We'll try as much as possible to manage with the time that we have.
I think one of
put as many questions and get as many answers as we can.
One of the things I want to answer, you say that we are not offering alternatives. Of course, we don't have to offer because we are not involved in your business.
No, you are a citizen. You are a citizen.
So let me give you.
Citizen activity. We don't have a business that is.
We are critiquing. You are an opposition leader. You have come up with a strategy, and this discussion is about critiquing your strategy, such that you can respond to
critiquing involves saying there is this one.
So I'm saying
that this one.
For example, you are harping on the fact that it will take people to rise.
Yes.
And you are trying to encourage people to rise.
Yes.
In the last election, you had P10, which was supposed to be people's groupings to rise if need be. After the elections, have you gone back to them and challenged them? Why didn't you rise? I think this is one of the problems for all politicians during elections.
So you are suggesting I haven't?
Please, just hold on. Because I am not aware, you can say that you have gone and they have told you why they didn't rise. Most of the politics world over, unfortunately, is about what the leaders like you think is the right thing. It is never directly what the people think is the right thing. So in terms of this strategy of people rising, you can educate us how you have gone across the country and the people have told you why they didn't rise against what you say was a stolen victory and why they will now rise against the extension of term and the age limit.
If you give me time, I will, you know.
That's why I'm sometimes I think the leaders are not in consonance with the people. You want to believe that they are as frustrated as you are, and then events sort of show that they are not. Unfortunately, they get the leaders they deserve. You know, as they say, no army can defeat an idea whose time has come. Maybe your idea's time has not yet come. And throughout history, many ideas, their time will come.
Okay, can I just add some messages from our viewers so that you can, when you respond, I give you adequate time to respond. There is a listener, a viewer here who says, no, the panelists are getting it wrong. Besigye represents a struggle, and this sameness and living discussion is a myopic reading of the struggle that he represents. This person didn't give me their name. Another, Anteja Sima says, Dr. Besigye, you promised us a tsunami. We are still waiting. You deceived the people of Masaka that they were lucky they were going to see him going. To this date, the man has never left. You put on red ribbons and assured us that Article 102B will not be amended. It was amended. What will Tubalemese do? Nteja Simwe. Another, Nwabine, I think is in Kabula. He says, if only Ugandans could unravel the forces behind Besigye's and seizing demonstrations and campaigns, they would know that he is doing more of business than politics in those demonstrations. And of course, he is handsomely remunerated by the whites who always use comprador agents like him to change governments in Africa. Since you're here, you respond to that yourself. Let me also take a few messages from WhatsApp. Someone here says, there is an additional strategy, though, or yes, or supplement to a grand strategy. Have you considered infiltration of the NRM, sending people to run on the NRM ticket, get into parliament and get positions in other elective offices, and then use them as part of the civil uprising? He wants to know. Lincoln Sayuni is in Kizza, says, the success of any campaign, whether for or against establishments, is hinged around humility of the campaigners. When such humility is either forged or overstepped, the campaign remains an illusion. Joshua is in Ishaka and says, Uganda's biggest problem is Besigye and Museveni, who think they are the only vision bearers for Uganda. Besigye needs to collect his last drop of humility and give way to systems other than constantly fronting this, his egocentric power, solo messiah approach. Tubalemese is another failed slogan that only gives hope to the delusioned. Museveni to Rwachitura, Kebi to Rwakabengo. Uganda to prosperity. Joshua in Ishaka. Bernard Mpeirwe is in Luwaga. He says, Dr. Besigye, that we are tired of slogans. Koji Kuteko has not taken off, you're bringing Tubalemese. We want Besigye to tell us how different is and how he's going to handle the same police. Bernard Mpeirwe adds, as long as you change slogans and you're still handled by the same state operatives, I think you're wasting time and possibly also doing accountability to your foreign funders. This thing keeps coming up, so I hope you'll have opportunity to respond to it now. Then someone says, oh, this one is the saying the joke, hitting at me and says, he's Kulemesa the moderator for a whole 20 minutes. Himself notifying this distinction from earlier proclamations. Dr. Bess, you're listening, you're hearing from the viewers, you're hearing from the panelists. I need you to respond.
And that is why I told you that I really need not just 20 minutes. Because I have to respond to everybody. Nobody is making any.
Someone say I've had 2 decades.
Nobody is making any.
I've not had less time.
Nobody here certainly has told us how we can get away from a military dictatorship. Every citizen has
they are telling you to give up. That is the
yes, everybody has a responsibility to produce ideas and produce action. Every citizen.
Yeah, you know, Dr. Bessie, the question of time is why we have a problem that you keep talking about, which is President Museveni. He keeps asking for more time to accomplish and accomplish things. So there are many issues coming to you. You must answer them in the time that we have available.
Yes.
And then we'll get out when we need
but
to.
You have to
okay.
be, you
Please go ahead.
have to be fair, that's all. Now, the question is, as I have pointed out, first of all, just to go back to the basics, that we have a strategy which is not contested, because I have not had anybody bring a different strategy that works. So you must simply concede that nobody has a superior strategy. 2, I have said within that strategy.
Does that suggest you have the superior strategy? Your strategy is superior to those?
Short of hearing anybody. Yes. Certainly nobody here. None of those you have read their messages is producing any other strategy apart from the strategy we have talked about. Let people think and bring a superior strategy. Let them say we are fed up with the same thing. It is that same thing that works, however long it takes. We went to the bush, we spent 5 years. The strategy was the same. People's protracted armed struggle. That was the strategy. Even if we spent 100 years in the bush, it would have remained the strategy. People's armed, protracted. Now, under the strategy, there are tactics. And one should differentiate between strategy and tactics. Walk to work was a tactic under the non-violent struggle. The other campaigns that we have had have been campaigns, and we have had many, and those campaigns continue. They don't have to end. So I have been hearing people say, this campaign started, still going on, you start another one. Even you, where you are, you can start a campaign, and it will be part of the same strategy. The people's non-violent struggle. So it doesn't have to, the campaigns don't have to come from the same place. The campaigns from the same place don't have to be the same, but the effect, the purpose must be the same. And the purpose is, one, to progressively empower citizens and progressively disempower, weaken the dictatorship. That is the eventual objective. Whatever weakens the dictator is progress for the struggle. Whatever empowers citizens is progress for. And some people, really, either are totally blind or simply have no capacity to analyze that our people have been progressively getting empowered and stronger and standing up to demand what is theirs. You've seen people close roads that are impassable and saying this road you won't pass unless you do something about it. You've seen people in this town close their shops all over Uganda and say we have a grievance, unless it is solved, we are closing the shops. And the grievances are immediately solved. You've seen, all these, the doctors who are striking, all these are people who are empowered, who come up and, put.
Why is that empowerment not sustained to achieve the ultimate objective that you keep talking about?
If it did, the struggle would be over. The struggle does not end when it starts. It develops. It can take a long time. Even if you are fighting with guns, some armed struggles have lasted 50 years. Some have lasted more. It doesn't mean that the struggle is not making progress. It doesn't mean that the struggle will not end. It simply means that you haven't achieved the critical points that are necessary for the struggle to end. And unless you achieve them, or unless you develop another strategy, which, as I have told you, I haven't had, then you must continue doing the things you need to do to have this strategy work. And as I have told you, there are three things. Conscientization, wherever you are, make sure that every Ugandan knows that it is his duty.
And who's leading this struggle? Maybe that's the gap.
So first of all, let me tell you that the struggle like we have today is not cannot be a partisan struggle. And that's why, indeed, when you see us, we are from different political parties. The reason, by the way, we had the setup at Katonga in the manner that you seem to be uncomfortable with has a history in the election of 2016. There is absolutely no doubt that I defeated Mr. Museveni in the election. I have evidence, and I have said the same in court, because don't forget they have charged me with treason because I declared myself a winner. I have gone to court and said yes, I won, and I declared that I won. If it is treasonable, give me the opportunity to show you the evidence that I won. So we defeated Mr. Museveni. He overthrew the people's will with guns. You saw them surrounding my home all the time. You saw them grab me and take me to Karamoja and so on. So Mr. Museveni lost 2016 elections. He is in office not because of people's will. He is in office because of the way he came there in the first place, by using guns to overthrow people's will. Now, having said that, we said the people have empowered us to form government, and we shall form one. And we formed the people's government. And the people's government is there.
How does that work?
Well, you should take more time to see how it works.
It's a virtual government.
So the people's government addressed the conference we were talking about. And whether it works or not, the whole week, the country is seized with what the people's government has announced. Since we came here,
the clarification, I think the clarification is
this whole... To be honest, out of the entire campaign, I felt that, to be honest, for me, I felt that was the absolute weakest point. For me, it felt like political theatre, about saying, we are going to appoint an alternative government. Because you see, the thing is, you don't have a real mandate with an alternative government, because you don't have resources, you don't have, you cannot do anything. But so you just figureheads.
Why are you the whole evening here? I'm sure NTV pays a lot of money to have all these things. The whole evening, all of you people left your homes to come and discuss what the people's government has said.
I think
because
we are interested. I came here because I want you to succeed.
I'm sure you saw the people's government deliver food to people who were starving, who were actually dying. There is a government to which we pay.
Is that sustainable? Is that it?
It doesn't matter whether it is
That's
sustainable or
why
not
I think even your strategy
It's not sustainable.
of the people
You see,
uprising is
it's
not
not
sustainable.
sustainable.
You see,
We actually saw it in
need to
Egypt.
educate yourselves. And that
No,
is-
we saw it in Egypt,
you need
where
to-
the people were overthrown by
Even
the army
Tunisia right
You
now.
see,
after they had risen. So you are likely
Yeah.
to go in the same cycle here.
there are reasons for why everything happens.
We have seen
And
it in
every
Zimbabwe,
polity-
where the army has
every
taken
polity
power.
is
And in
different.
Zimbabwe, the opposition.
Okay,
every polity is
I'm being
different.
told we need to take a break, but
Yes, but you haven't answered
yes,
all these questions.
Where-
you
where-
were
where's the
more
clock?
time.
The clock is running. The clock is
So,
running.
so, why do you ask the questions if you don't want me to ask them?
Dr. Besigye, you're surely going
Because
to
I
have...
try to answer one,
Yes.
then everybody
Dr.
comes. and-
Besigye, you're surely going
We
to
are
have
teaching
to...
you not to get term extensions when you get
You're going to have to
No,
summarize
but-
your answers, your responses,
But
to be
summarize
able
them,
to answer...
there are many.
Yes, there are many.
You know?
Even if we gave you 5 years in government, there are many issues that you would have to deal with, and wouldn't. I don't think you would advocate.
So
for an
how
extension
much
of that.
time do I have so that I know
Uh-huh.
how to summarize?
All of us, the 4 of us here, and our listeners and our viewers are going to use the 1.5 hours that we have for this show. We're not going to extend that. To contextualize, the question of people's governments and other governments.
Yes.
Governments, struggle movements can have governments that are not in power. I think Tibet has been maintaining a government in exile. The Palestinian Authority maintained a government in somewhere else.
Even when
So
we were in the bush, we had a government here.
Yeah,
There was a
don't know
government
that-
here, we had a
don't know that
government
surprises
here.
me a
also
lot.
have a
But just a quick
geopolitical
question before you take a break. Dr. Besigye, you said that President Museveni, you won the election in 2016.
Yes.
Does that speak the same to the election of 2011, 2006, and 2001?
Well, I
Will the
have
answer be consistent?
I have views on all those, but I think it will be diversionary to go into all those when we are dealing with the latest one, which is most effective. Because even if I say I won 2011 when there was another one in 2016, does not make sense. The operative one now is
Is 2016.
2016. He is not in office now because he won 2011. He's in office because he won 2016, and it is that contest that we have.
Just another quick one. You said the struggle cannot be tied to time, but the principal challenge you're putting is against Yoweri Museveni and the National Resistance Movement. And every time your struggle delays, they extend their stay in power. So he's now counting this month. In a few days, it will be 32 years in power.
So
And
what is the
with
question?
the amendment of the Constitution, there is every likelihood that either he will have an election in
You see,
2023
you see
or stay on
that
longer
question
than that.
is redundant. People who take over power by guns do not live on their own. So unless Museveni is pushed out by struggle, he will stay until his grandson
And that's exactly what makes my question not redundant, is that you started pushing, but he's not leaving. So how long will this push go on, or will other factors, natural causes and others,
First of all,
sort
I
out
have
the
told
issue
you,
before you?
I have told
able
you
to-
that this is not a Besigye push. Cannot be. Will not be. It's a Uganda's push. As long as, and I think Onapito is quite right, as long as Ugandans have not organized themselves well enough to push him out, he will stay. And all we are doing is simply playing whatever humble role we can to assist that process.
and someone will ask,
But as long as there are no competencies to push him out, he won't go because 26 has come or 28 has come or 29 has come. He won't go.
Yes, and someone will ask you the
Look
question.
at Kabila.
Yes.
When Kabila in Congo, his term ended a long time ago. What is
He's
he
still in power,
serving
yes.
now?
And
So
someone
it's
will
not
ask-
about...
Someone will ask you a question. Are you reading from the same script as those Ugandans? They can rise up when their day-to-day living is threatened, they will retreat. Are you reading from the same script?
Of course. You know, I get, sometimes rather concerned about asking the same thing in different ways. You see, when Museveni started the struggle in Ruwero, there were some 30 people in a very small area. The reason he won is not because of the 30 people. The other people did not play a role until at very different times and in very different ways. It doesn't mean that they were not on the same script. So Ugandans, I can say without any fear of contradiction, that the greatest majority of Ugandans want change. The greatest majority of Ugandans are in a terrible situation. And I worry when some people say they are not bad off enough yet. They are. They have told you they have been dying of hunger, being buried of hunger. You know, people who die every day, who can't access malaria treatment, you know, basic things, you know, the people are in terrible, terrible condition and will do anything. You saw what happened here in 2009 indeed. Was it us who spurred people to take action in 2009? No, on their own. They took over police stations, took over everything. They are the same people you meet on the streets.
Leah had put a question.
So the reason it's taking long, as I have said previously, is simply because we, the elite, have betrayed the country. We have not provided the leadership that the people would benefit from to make this come to a head as quickly as possible.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. We'll pick it up after a very short commercial break. You're welcome to this last segment of the Fourth Estate. There are many issues to respond to. There are many people calling. The phone line has been ringing off the hook in the production studio, but we don't even have time to pick it as yet. And let me ask you, Dr. Besigye, and the panelists, that we ignore the Trump comments for now and continue with things that affect more Ugandans.
With the people's government.
We continue with the people's
Actually,
with the people's president. Uganda cranes with the Chipolopolo of Zambia, 1-1 so far.
Oh,
yes, speaking 1-1 so far. We'll give you the details, the detailed updates. So we keep praying for the cranes to triumph over this challenge. Someone here says, he says, we Ugandans need to be, it's a very long message from Anthony, he's in the USA. He says, I think the doctor didn't hear or just ignore the idea of infiltration because he has no one that sent in a message provided any ideas. Yes, someone else had sent a message about you doing infiltration. Museveni used infiltration with the opposition and with all other institutions. So why don't they employ it against him too? It's not easy, but it's doable. We Ugandans need to be realistic. It's not easy to oppose a president like Museveni. At the moment, Mr. Besigye is losing a PR battle. This is why some people think he has been here too long or that he is too ubiquitous. In his defense, Besigye is not the leader of the opposition in all African countries where leaders are despotic. These leaders are not easy to dislodge. It's not easy in practice, and Dr. Besigye or opposing leaders, for that matter, cannot do it alone. Therefore, he is right. It's the people that must push for the change that they want. Another listener, another viewer here, I think Bernard Ampere says, yeah, that you should change strategy and lobby foreign leaders, for example, to cut aid. Mobilizing Ugandans to Tubalemese may not work. So take the campaign beyond Uganda's borders. Another listener here, I think it's Frank Gashumba, who says, it's only Dr. Kizza Besigye who has kept the candle burning. From 2001 elections to 2016, some of the following people contested for presidency: Kibirige Mayanja, Agra Wori, Chapa Karuhanga, Wazarahi Bwenje, Senkubuge Siasa, Mirio Bote, Abed Wanika, Lubega Mukwaku, Betty Kamia, Engineer Mavirizi, Jeno Benon Veraro, Professor Venances Variamreva, Norbert Mao, John Patrick Amama Mbabazi. Where are they? Is a big question. Where have they disappeared to? And why should Besigye be hanged alone for not delivering the change that people claim? And then someone else called and said, was asking the question, is this Tubalemese a personal strategy or a strategy of the FDC? If it is a strategy of the FDC, why aren't you letting the leadership of the FDC take it as an institution instead of you taking the lead as Dr. Kizza Besigye?
Well, again, the same kind of questions that keep on coming. First of all, maybe I should again refocus what we are, refocus on what we are trying to do. It's erroneous, really misnomerous, misleading to think that the struggle is between opposition and the government. The struggle would be between opposition and the government if it was about government policies. And you know, how to do UPE better and how to organize health better. The fundamental struggle we are engaged in, as I have pointed out, and of course you are free to agree or disagree, is simply whether we have a country or whether our country is hostage. If the country is hostage, you can't start talking about how it should be organized because it's not within your power to do so. The struggle we are in is a struggle to regain our country. And this is not just from Museveni, it is from the time it was taken over by the British guns, which created even Uganda as an entity. Ugandans did not create it. And that's why, however, the guns will be put under the feet of Ugandans. Whenever it happens, however it happens, what must follow is reorganizing the country. We must have a genuine constitutional conference. Mr. Mulika, Owekitiibwa Mulika, has been talking about this. Uganda was forcefully formed. It was not the willful formation, engagement of Ugandans. And as I have told you, since then, constitutions have been the pocket constitutions of whoever is leading and amending them according to their will. So the first thing we must now willfully, having regained control of our country, we must willfully engage on how we live together and manage the country. What level of decentralization, for example? That is becoming a very critical question. You've heard people talking about Republic of the Nile, Republic of Kawempe, Republic of Yira, Republic of whatever. These are real issues. We must, sit and engage on how we rebuild this country. So a constitutional engagement we must follow. Following that, we must, arising out of the constitution, rebuild state institutions as dictated by the constitution. If we are, for example, in a federal kind of arrangement, there must be a federal institution, there must be state institution, there must be whatever. But even the existing institutions like police, military, whatever, they are now institutions of those who have power. Institutions serve those who have power. As long as people have no power, institutions don't serve them. So we have a judiciary that does not serve people. We have a police that does not serve people. We have a military that we have then to rebuild institutions to become institutions of the people. They cannot be unless people have power. We then must heal the wounds through a truth-telling. How have we killed each other all this time? All the death that has happened in Ruwero, in northern Uganda, in eastern Uganda, in Kasese, wherever. All these are wounds that will keep on festering unless we actually deal with them. And we must consciously deal with them at some time after regaining the country. And lastly, we would have free and fair elections. So, please, those of us who are engaging on this side are not engaging as opposition. We are engaging as citizens, seeking to regain control of our country. In fact, as all of you may remember, I voluntarily stepped down from the leadership of FDC because it was actually getting in the way I was engaging, because it was limiting me as a political, operator in a political party. Yes, I don't think that this is the time for it. They have a role, political parties have a role, but this is not the time for political parties. So the engagement, and people who keep on saying you, the opposition, actually tactically use it to hide their non-engagement with the freeing of the country they call theirs. This is not an opposition thing, this is a citizen thing that everyone, including you in the media, including wherever you are, at whatever station, whether you are in the police, if you want Uganda to be in our hands and to serve us equitably, with us having equal influence, then you must engage in the, and that's why when we say Tubalemese, we are not talking about the people in the opposition, Tubalemese bali mu government. No. Even those people who are serving within the government institutions must play their role kulemesa, those who are holding the country hostage. Whether you are in the police, whether you are in the army, whether you are in the civil service, whether you are in the president's office.
We need you to clarify, how do they kulemesa?
Oh, yes. You can do things that make it difficult for the regime to keep holding on to power. And there are
things.
Like?
Let's be specific.
there are many things. I mean, for example, you know, if you are in the police, you are being deployed to go and stop people communicating, you can creatively not do what
You've been instructed to do.
Yes. And this happened. You see, this struggle, as I have told you, we are not inventing the wheel. These struggles have happened all over the world. And people who have, you know, done, even now, what happened eventually, and what will happen even here, what will happen here is that the people who are in the security will link up with the population and say, no, this is no longer.
And then your illusion, or utopian government where the military will be controlled.
It's
That
not,
is an illusion.
It's not an
And
illusion.
let me tell you, if you had won elections, you would take control of the army and use it the same way Yoweri Museveni is using.
I could, you see, I could, as long as people have not gained the competencies to kulemesa anybody who does not act in accordance with their will.
Don't you think
If the military and whoever is holding the state realizes that this cannot go on, people have simply tightened everything. Because tell me, if tomorrow all these people who are all over the country stopped bringing food to this town, and it's possible they can do it. Yes, they can. All it takes is just a little organization. They can stop food from coming to Kampala.
But at
Okay.
what
All
cost
those-
to them?
I'm afraid we need to
You-
engage
you-
our viewers, because
For
they're calling-
Museveni to come to power, it cost 500 dead bodies. They are still piled up there. You will never get change without any pain.
Of course.
So if they think that, if anybody thinks
and
that
Dr. Besigye,
because you are not selling your matoke for a week,
as we
you cannot afford to do that in order to get the change you need, then you will stay
Dr.
for as
Besigye,
long as you have that feeling.
the
You stay
question
where
is,
you are.
you articulate very fundamental issues, and your analysis of what needs to be done is spot on. The question is, you and Museveni sold exactly the same narrative 37 years ago.
It is not.
And just a moment. And the reason the going to the bush option has been off the cards is that Ugandans say, this is what we are sold, this is how we are shortchanged. So we cannot go back the same way.
and,
But I'm afraid you're not going to respond to that now.
No. I must respond because that is the very fundamental thing.
Yes.
I told you at the beginning of this that what we sold to Ugandans then was that we would fight, win the war, and hand over power to them.
And
that,
you didn't.
That we have seen
Failed.
may not happen.
Yes.
Because it would depend entirely on the willful action of those who have power.
You promised to fight.
Surrendering it.
You promised to fight, win power, hand it over to Ugandans.
What we are promising-
You promised to heal wounds that remain unhealed. You promised to create a fundamental change in the economy.
Just listen.
It hasn't happened.
Just
Yes.
listen. The reason it hasn't happened is because that process, as we have learned, painfully, some of us, because don't forget it was a very extremely painful process. What we have learned through that pain is that it still empowers the few who hold guns. And the reason we have deliberately opted not to take up guns, because we could.
Dr. Besigye,
And we could overthrow
Yes,
this regime,
that takes me
but
exactly-
overthrowing it. So what this will avoid is having people say, where were you?
No,
when we were fighting.
And that's exactly the
Which
question.
is what you have been saying.
And
where were you?
Yes.
You were under the beds.
No.
When
That's
everybody,
exactly-
when everybody has done
that's
something,
exactly- that's exactly
when
the
everybody has done something, except of course the Onapitos who are just commentators. When everybody has done something, you won't tell them where were you. They will
Thank
know
you.
that they.
Now you have isolated me.
No, that's exactly the same question that's still there. When you announced Tubalemese, it was the people's government.
Yes.
Led by the people's president,
Yes.
Dr. Kizza Besigye,
Yes.
and his cabinet.
Yes.
How do you convince the doubting Thomases, especially among the elite
Because-
and the rural masses, that you will not do exactly the same?
Because we have no tools to do it.
No, but you do.
No,
You
no.
can call a press conference
No.
and address that press conference, and they will take you. The other people are still outside. There is still a smaller
You
group.
see, let me tell you what immunizes future generations against dictators. When people see that with their own organization and numbers, they have failed those with guns to do what they want. Nobody wielding any kind of force will dictate what will happen in their country.
Al-Sisi is doing that in Egypt.
You know that revolution aborted.
Yes.
Because-
So what would stop a Ghanaian revolution from aborting?
No, understand. What you see, what happened, and this is why I say that every the problem is you have very little time. I could analyze for you what happened in Egypt, because it was not El-Sisi that actually overthrew. Don't forget that people came back on the streets
Yes.
and actually demanded that the
they're still trying to come
military
back now.
come in. So there was a different dynamic which you must
What is the Ugandan
contend
dynamic?
with.
Yeah.
But even in that dynamic, where now they isolated the Islamists who were
The Islamic Brotherhood.
the Muslim Brotherhood,
Muslim Brotherhood, rather.
even there, you know, now in Egypt, El-Sisi, even with all the weapons he has, he knows that people can actually fail.
Okay. Let me take some callers.
Yes.
Otherwise, people
because they failed them.
I don't want my viewers to fail me, so let me allow them because this is their show. Hello, do you have a caller?
Hello,
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
I'm calling from Muntinda.
Your name, sir?
I'm John.
John, keep your question or comment brief, please.
I'm responding to Dr. Besigye.
Yes, go ahead.
I would suggest to myself that Dr. Besigye himself is a dictator. Because Dr. Besigye left the leadership of FDC long time ago. But as we speak up to now, he shadows the current president of FDC. And he is actually acting as the president of FDC.
John, where have you seen a dictator who's a shadow at the same time?
I'm saying Dr.
Where do those exist?
is acting as a dictator.
Okay.
He's dictating all over the activities of FDC right now.
Yes, but my question is...
I say Dr. Besigye has shadowed the current president of FDC. He has taken over the powers of the president of FDC. Look at the example. During the announcement of Tubalemese, who was supposed to announce that? Was it Dr. Besigye or the spokesperson of FDC or the current president of FDC?
Why didn't the president
When they
announce
were
it at
campaigning even in
Najanakumbi?
Amboli,
Yes.
we saw a president aspiring to be the president of FDC saying, my political mentor is Dr. Besigye.
So?
Two,
Okay.
when you look at the MPs of FDC, they no longer participate with Dr. Besigye in this sabotage of government activities. Look like I'm ever seeing him lonely with our Mayor Lukwago trying to say this will not happen, and later on it happened.
Okay.
So,
Dr. Besigye will respond to you. Thank you, John. I have many callers online, so I think you make your point. Dr. Besigye will respond to you. Hello?
If you have the time.
Hello?
Hello,
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
I'm Robert calling from Yumbe.
Yes, Robert. Keep your question or comment brief.
Yeah, I think Dr. Besigye is a dictator indeed. Because as you see, when he left FDC from Najana Nkumbi, he put other headquarters at Katonga. And he pulls all the activities of the opposition to Katonga, making Najana Nkumbi office irrelevant. So to me, leaving FDC leadership was a tactical withdrawal, but he still wanted to struggle because he wants himself to be the only face behind the opposition, and to be sure he will be on the ballot as many times as Museveni himself. So he has no difference with the Museveni because the dictator, they are all the same. Right now, we call him.
Robert, you're not asking a question, you're making a comment, just like John did.
Which has already been made.
And the question someone would ask you is, why
time
do those elected leaders of FDC not take up their position or claim their place? Does it have to be someone? We have another caller. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you. Your name, sir?
I'm calling from Entebbe.
Yes, your name, sir?
I'm calling from Entebbe.
Yes, your name?
Yes, I'm called John.
John, yes?
I'm asking, why did that gentleman announce his Tubalemese after taking his son outside?
Okay. I think he'll answer that himself. He's best positioned to answer that question. Hello, do you have another caller? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
I'm calling from Muyenga.
Muyenga, your name, sir?
I'm called Tubalemese Siraj.
Siraj, yes?
And I would really love to ask Dr. Besigye, like, why do they really take the situation of flip-flopping and look at us as we are the subject that they are not really working on? That's it.
I think you have your TV on because you can hear an echo. Hello, we have another caller. Hello? 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 Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
Yes, I'm called Mr. Chinji,
Change, yes?
calling from Kampala.
From Kampala?
Yes, please.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm calling from Kampala. I'm called Mr. Chinji.
Yes, please, go ahead. You have your TV on. Please turn it down. Turn down the volume on your TV set. You're giving us an echo. Mr. Chinji? He's still on TV. Hello? 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 When you're calling us, please turn down the volume on your TV set. You don't have to listen to yourself making the call. Speak to us. Hello? I think we have very little time, so let's come back to studio. And Dr. Besigye, you've had some of these callers and the many things that you still have to respond to.
Yes. First of all, as I have pointed out, this is not a time really for partisan activity, because there is no freedom. Parties have a role within the meaning of what I talked about, educating the people so that people get conscientized, organizing people so that they are able to act together, taking actions that whatever actions are there to, cripple the regime and to strengthen what they are doing. Parties have that role, not the fundamental role of political parties in a democracy have two main roles. The first one is articulating a program for development of the country. You know, a political platform, as you may call it, and influencing the country to support that platform. So the first one is formation of political will within the population. The second one is developing leaders to offer leadership in implementing that. These are the two main functions of political parties. But those functions only actually happen when the country is in the hands of the people, so that people can give them power. The whole idea of campaigning is so that people give you power to implement what you want to implement. Even in the last election, I was telling people all over the country that you presently have no power to give me. The power is somewhere else. I am calling upon you to work together so that we reclaim that power first, have a transition that I have talked about, and then we can have free and fair elections when there is freedom to organize and to popularize, you know, which agenda is best for the country. So, my not being in FDC does not stop people who are in FDC to do that. In any case, I have never been in DP. I have never been in UPC. I have never been in JEMA. I have never been, there are many parties which are there. So what is stopping those parties from, you know, gaining and doing what they need to do to take over power? Are they also being crippled by Besigye? No. So the thing is that the crippling effect of political parties is the same. The fact that they don't have space to function. So that's why in the people's government which we have, it's not a partisan platform. And that's why indeed you saw not only the FDC president, but we had people from DP and DP MPs and FDC MPs, and we had JEMA, we have Ken Ruchamuzi's CP, they were all there. So we work together for change, and the change being reclaiming the country. We are not at a stage of looking for a leader, for heaven's sake. A leader is looked for to lead the country. We don't have the country. So that's why the struggle now is a liberation struggle. And, you know, many people keep on causing confusion because they don't want that to be clear. Because we are not working in a vacuum. The regime is investing huge amounts of resources to undertake propaganda, to scuttle what we are doing. And part of that propaganda, indeed, is what you keep on hearing. Besigye is the problem. Even they themselves actually say Besigye is the same as Museveni. Even if you move from Museveni, you come to Besigye, there will be no change. They are the same. As if the struggle now is for Museveni or Besigye. The struggle is for Uganda. There is no country in our hands. Now, on the question of, you know, leaders who join or do not join, this is a free engagement. You know, we have many MPs who were there as we launched Tubalemese from different political parties. They were there. It's their willful act. You've seen MPs who have, even at some times, being from the struggle, supporting those who are in the government. That I cannot answer for them. The population will have to answer for them. Now, and it's part of that propaganda that you hear. Besigye is calling you to suffer when his son is abroad. There was somebody asking, I took my son abroad. Yes, my son is in college in the US. My son is an adult. He will choose when he wants to come to the struggle. I don't have to force him to come to the struggle so that I have legitimacy for struggling myself. When I went to the bush in Ruwero, I did not have any son. I went myself, and if I died, I would have died alone. So my struggle should not be linked. When Museveni was in the bush in Ruwero, all his children were in Sweden. That did not stop the struggle in Ruwero going on and being won when Museveni's children were in Sweden. We don't expect children to be the ones to fight. But those who want to fight, even here, you know, if you are a child and if you have children and you want them to be in the struggle, that is your business. I don't come to say send your children to struggle. Whoever wants to struggle simply comes forward and struggles. Now, the question of whether we have systems, I heard somebody talking about institutions. You know, I am against institutions, and actually the contrary, because this struggle, as we have pointed out, cannot be a struggle to get a leader. It is primarily a struggle to get qualitative change in terms of where the power lies. The change of guards will remain as long as power remains within a few people. Even if it is Besigye who actually took over power, in the current circumstances, there would be no fundamental change.
You would do the same.
There would be nothing to compare me to do different.
Okay.
Yes, there would be nothing. There would be nothing within the population. The population must have capacity to compel leaders to do what they want. And that is what is lacking. Until we achieve that, leaders can do what they want.
Okay, I'm afraid we got to bring the short one in. Our time is
never
really...
run for another election under this system, which would not necessarily
Honor, I think that question may not be answered because our time is out. We need to get out of
but
here.
we need
Are
to
we
make
going to
comments.
wind up?
It's coming to midnight.
Yeah,
it's
so we must
it's coming
make
to midnight.
comments.
We
have been
need,
listening to the
I'm afraid we
doctor.
need to finish this. Let me read some more messages from
That's
some
the
of our
problem.
viewers.
For what
Give
purpose?
us comments.
For what purpose are you going to read those messages?
Let's
If we cannot
make our
respond to
comments
them.
and
People
go.
are viewing.
Yes.
They have sent their messages.
Yes, but unless
They
we're
need
able to
those-
respond to them,
Yes.
then they remain
Dr.
simply...
Besigye, we have extended the time for the show.
and you
But
are reading
precisely,
from
you said
messages.
we shall do everything within the 1.5 hours.
Yes.
So if the time is over, let's go. Otherwise, if you read messages, give us time and we respond to them.
That's a good one.
Can you summarize and we get out of here?
Yes, I think you want me to start because I think
We want
it's
to
only
give
fair. I've
our
been
comments.
talking.
Yeah, I think Charles.
Yes, I'm going to read some of these messages. So I'll still read them.
And we shall answer.
Joram, if there is a question, you'll answer the question. If there is a comment, we'll not have to respond to it. Joram Bintamanya says, what's wrong with people? Should Besigye hide? They will say Museveni has given him money. Batoro say, otaguchumba otajyocha, girete hiri.
Don't cook it.
Don't cook it, don't roast it, but deliver it ready. Another listener here says, Dr. Besigye has played his role. It's up to Ugandans to wake up. The challenge is Museveni has a big budget to bribe whoever tries to rise. This one doesn't give me their name. Another viewer says, Dr. Besigye, our president, has clearly stated his campaign or move ain't based on parties. So it's time for us Ugandans to wake up and stop all blame games to defeat Museveni. Besigye is not the same as Museveni. We have a visionary Ugandan and a visionary swindler. These are the words of some viewer here. Another viewer says, elites want an invitation card and Uber fees to join the struggle. Like inviting your father-in-law to your wedding, it's you who provides transport. After the invitation, guys like Muntu and Mbabazi with a false equivalence campaign, they seem like alternatives who require affirmative action to match Besigye. It seems like that. This is another opinion from one of our viewers. And David Karamagi says, Mr. Besigye, the other strategy is to wait. Let nature take its course. David, and he's somewhere in Kisasi. And then the last message I read says, at first I did not understand Kizza Besigye, but over time I have started to get his position. My prayer and advice to him is that let him try to talk to his opposition leaders like Mao, Bwanika, Otuna and others, such that they come up with one force to mobilize the entire country, otherwise Museveni is not a walkover. So these messages don't need you to respond to them. Can we start with the conclusion? Robbie, you're free to either comment on President Trump or comment on this discussion we've been having, and we'll get out of here in the next 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Charles. With the Trump thing, I think it goes back to this whole thing about venting. America's going through a lot of their own problems, and last week's Fire and Fury, he didn't want anyone to talk about that book or anything anymore. So anything that had to criticize what he's doing or how he was doing it, he just had to get the topic of discussion and get them off course, and the media would follow through. For Africans, in terms of our story and what we have to say and what we have to do, I think it's incumbent upon us to know that even America and other places have their problems, even when their presidents change. You have issues, for example, in the UK with the national health security, with the national health, and then you have all sorts of immigration issues. But Uganda can also have answers for itself and can play a bigger role if you look at what we've done with the refugees here. So if we either part of the problem or part of the solution. And for Dr. Besigye, I think what Ugandans are looking for are strategies, whether they are part of those strategies or whether they're formulated by strategies. But if something is going to move, there's got to be a plan. Minus a plan, it's just another act on the stage.
Look,
thank you.
Just for me, I think the opposition has to appreciate that the country's future may not take the trajectory they think. The idea that there is no country may not be entirely true. There is a country. And there are people who are holding the country, you may call it hostage, are fairly well organized. And they may be and have a very good chance at perpetuating the system as we know it, and it will become the defining nature of this country, with or without Yoweri Museveni. So it may not necessarily have to say it has to dismantle and take to the people. The core state run by the armed forces is likely to continue being the state we shall have for many years, or even centuries to come.
Thank you. Leah?
I think, for me, in conclusion, first of all, I just need to let the record reflect that these criticisms come from a good place, and that I really, really want the opposition to succeed, because I too am tired of this government. But perhaps, and Dr. Besigye said that we're not offering any alternatives, and perhaps this might not be part of the strategy. Maybe it's something that they're thinking about down the line, but I would have been happy to hear about it already, about what they're going to do to take over the 317 MP seats, the people, because they said these MPs need to be shunned, they need to be punished. But what is the opposition going to do to make sure that they're viable candidates? We don't have to wait until 2021 or however when. I don't know when the next election will be now that things are changing. But I'd be very, very excited if there is now a very concerted effort to mentor, to groom the new set of leaders that will be able to challenge the current incumbents. Okay.
Someone might say you're waiting for an invitation. Like one of the viewers sent a message. And Uber, Dr. Besigye, you're closing.
Yeah, first of all, to say that, what is happening, the despondency, the, kind of feeling of dejection that you sense from Mr. Napito's talk, that, this is likely to continue for very many years. It may not change. I am familiar with this kind of feeling and sense. It is actually the common feeling of the great darkness before dawn. And that is what normally happens. Just before dawn, it becomes very dark. And some people who are easy to give up say it will never happen. We had the same sense even when we were fighting in the last war. An offensive that went on for a long time broke us down because people have been suffering, have lost their properties, have been in jails, have been what, and it comes to a time when they feel that maybe this thing is not possible. But that is when it is about to happen, because the regime that we are dealing with, that is holding the Ugandans hostage, has never been weaker than it is today. The security forces, and this is the point I made in that press statement, the security forces that they rely on to hold power are themselves dysfunctional now in a very large measure. And I had them warning me, you cannot warn me about talking on my forces. These are my forces, I pay salaries to keep them, They are our children, they are our brothers. You cannot intimidate me. Don't talk about them. We shall talk about it, because they are the military and the security institutions have suffered even more than the rest of us. They are hostages within the hostage, and so then look at the economy. The economy, for whatever you want to do, has collapsed, and it has collapsed because for the last 32 years they are investing in regime protection rather than people protection. So people have become very weak. They cannot produce, they cannot pay taxes. The tax base is very shaky. I've been hearing Mr. Museveni saying, I found 44 billion as was the tax being collected. Now we have trillions. You may have trillions today, but you are failing to pay salaries. You are failing to pay doctors. You are failing to pay judicial officers. You are failing, and even to buy the constitution change was a problem. They had to trade in kind. Say, we are giving you 2 years instead of the money they were asking for. The councillors the other day who went to Kizza were given a cow each because there is no money to give them. So we have an economy that is on its knees. Yes, that's why it's like in Mobutu's days. Mobutu in his last days was signing a personal check to pay his guards. That's about where we are, because everybody has been incapacitated, has been weakened. And so once you have a situation like this, once the economy has collapsed, once popular legitimacy has collapsed completely, which you saw in the Toji Quarter Call. Some people said Toji Quarter Call was not a success. Toji Quarter Call was a huge success, because the whole country, for the first time, I've not seen it as united as it was. Even in the parliament, to find that many NRM MPs stood up and said no, not over our dead bodies. This was a huge success. So the strategy is clear, and I have said it's not contested so far, that we continue. Let's not waver with a non-violent struggle. What others were raising are tactics. Whether we infiltrate NRM in this non-violent struggle, that is a tactic. It's not a strategy. Whether the foreigners help us in stifling some of the things, that is a tactic. It's not a strategy. The strategy remains one non-violent struggle, and it involves all Ugandans. Over to you. It's not just me. Over to you. Over to all of you who are here.
You excluded me. That I'm a commentator.
Have a nice week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kizza Besigye, for making time for the show. Thank you very much, Leah. Thank you very much, Ona. Thank you very much, Robbie. Thank you very much to you all, our viewers, for joining us tonight and always, and especially those of you who gave us feedback, and each one who watched this show. Thank you very much, especially to our production team. They've been telling me we've overshot extremely more than we do, and so I'm having to release all you guys at midnight to leave. I just haven't been able to check. Production, can you help? What is the score for the Uganda Cranes and Chipolopolo? Pardon? Zambia has taken the lead. It's 2 and Uganda 1 at the moment. How many minutes do we have to go? About 20 minutes, so they still hope that maybe the Uganda Cranes can survive. Like Man City was trying to push back against Liverpool earlier today. Thank you very much to you all, and thank you very much. From me, it's a good night.
NTV, turning on your world.